Gentleman yields. Now recognize the gentleman from Illinois, the former federal prosecutor, Mr. LaHood.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all of our witnesses today for your service to our country. And I want to focus my questions this morning on FISA Section 702. And Director Ratcliffe, welcome back to the committee. In your confirmation hearing before the Senate, you were asked extensively about FISA and Section 702, and I think laid out a compelling narrative on how, as you described it, quote, how indispensable it is to national security. And you were also asked about a warrant requirement on Section 702. And your answer to that was, quote, on whether a warrant makes sense on 702, your quote was, "The answer is no. We're talking about national security issues where sometimes minutes matter in the ability to disrupt or interdict the bad actors or to act upon the intelligence that you can gain from that," unquote. Director, I wanted to ask you, is that still your belief today regarding the warrant requirement?
Congressman, it absolutely is. You've accurately reflected my prior testimony. It is also my testimony that 702 is indispensable to our intelligence picture, and the loss of it would be catastrophic to CIA. And the reason that I say that from this position is not only is 50% of all of our critical analysis provided to the President as Commander-in-Chief in the President's daily brief 702 derived, 70% of CIA's success with regard to advanced weapons counterproliferation is the result of 702 collected information. And finally, 90% of CIA's successful interdictions with regard to synthetic drugs like fentanyl are the result of 702 collection. It's absolutely indispensable to the work that CIA does, and I'm glad that you gave me the opportunity to reflect that to this committee.
Thank you, Director. And just to ask a follow-up on that, as you know, in the House last year when we had our FISA reform and Section 702 reform measures put in place, you know, we had a debate, robust debate on the House floor regarding the warrant requirement. It was a very, very close vote, 212 to 212. Director Ratcliffe, what can you tell our members to alleviate and reassure them on, again, the harm that a warrant requirement would do to 702?
Well, Congressman, it would impose a de facto ban on lawfully querying previously collected data to find threats against U.S. persons and government officials. So that would be, again, catastrophic to our efforts to keep our community safe. And I would also point out, because I know that these are legitimate concerns with regard when we talk about FISA and 702 specifically, everyone on this committee recalls that when I was a member, I also called out FISA abuses when they occurred. And I don't want there to be any violation of Americans' civil liberties and Fourth Amendment rights. But I would point to the CIA's, frankly, impeccable record of compliance, and we can talk about that more in a closed session.
Thank you, Director. Director Patel, I want to turn to you. Similar in your Senate confirmation, you were asked extensively about 702. And as you know, in our bill that we passed last year, we put lots of reforms and changes and protocols in place for the FBI. And I know that you're supportive of many of those. Specifically on the impracticalities of a warrant requirement on 702, you were quoted as saying, when you were asked about it, it is almost impossible to make that function of the warrant requirement work and to serve the national no-fail mission. Is that still your testimony here today?
It's great to see you, Congressman, and yes, that's my testimony.
Thank you. As you know, the reforms that we put in place were significant, requiring the FBI personnel to get a supervisor or attorney approval to conduct U.S. person inquiries, requiring high-level approvals up to the FBI deputy director level before certain queries are conducted on U.S. elected or appointed officials, candidates, or media personnel, requiring the Department of Justice to audit all U.S. person queries performed by the FBI within 6 months of each, with of 6 months of each query, reducing the number of FBI personnel who have the ability to query. Can you talk about the current implementation of those reforms and how that's going, Director Patel?
Absolutely. With probably the most recent one, in terms of 702 query reviews, we only have about 200 left when it comes to U.S. persons, and we will promulgate those findings to you. But as of today, of all the U.S. persons queried in the 702 databases, there's only been one instance of negligent conduct. We have already implemented limited access to those who actually know how to use the FISA process in 702, and we have implemented a direct reporting structure to the Office of Director and the Deputy Director to make sure that anyone, whether it's intentional or unintentional, abuses the 702 query system is brought to our attention immediately, and we will take that on for action directly. And in terms of piggybacking off Director Ratcliffe's, the public defender in me realizes the importance of constitutional due process more than anyone. The staffer in me from the House Intelligence Committee may be the only person who has worked more on FISA reform and exposing FISA abuse in modern congressional history. And the terrorism prosecutor in me and the JSOC civilian in me tells me that we cannot do away with 702 or FISA Title I and Title III, but we can work with you and your committee to make it better. I don't know all those ideas. I don't have all those answers, but you have my commitment that we will use it appropriately going forward.
Thank you, Director. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.